Hard acts to follow. Thank you, Elijah. Our next speaker is a member of our high school faculty and was selected by the entire class of 2021 to speak at their graduation ceremony today. It is no surprise that Mr. Finkelstein was selected. He is loved by all students and staff and is affectionately known on campus merely as Fink. As many of you also might know, he is a member of our high school English department and our varsity boys and girls tennis coach. What you might not know is that he has a bachelor's degree in English from Stanford University and a master's in fine arts and screenwriting from USC's School of Cinematic Arts. And most importantly, an absolute love of teaching at the high school level. And although I was reminded just last night by Dr. LeCarner, a fellow member of our high school English department, that Gonzaga's mock trial team beat Stanford's mock trial team approximately 30 years ago, I am still honored to introduce Mr. Ari Finkelstein as our faculty graduation speaker.
Thank you, Adam, for that kind introduction. Thank you, too, to this year's graduating class of 2021. Thank you for selecting me to speak. I'm honored, humbled, and only a little bit terrified. And of course, thank you to Gio and Elijah for your thoughtful and moving speeches. I knew it would be hard for me to get through this speech without getting too emotional. Here I am a mess, and it hasn't even started. My wife calls me a tenderloin. It doesn't help seeing all you seniors here today, together again. Some of you for the first time in over a year, all grown up, your full smiling faces. If I do have to pause and take a moment, maybe eat a bowl of oatmeal. Parents, don't worry, as your seniors here can tell you, that's nothing out of the ordinary. It's fortifying. Well, as an English teacher, I generally disapprove of the word interesting as a banal, meaningless word, but it certainly has been an interesting year. You guys have been through a lot, more than most high school classes, that's for sure. You survived Coronapocalypse, Snowmageddon, a year and a half of classes over Zoom, something most of us hadn't even heard of before last spring. You dealt with shortened sports seasons, canceled high school events. You somehow completed capstone projects and your community service hours at a time when most people wanted nothing to do with other people, especially strange and germy teenagers. And having seen your posters and presentations, by the way, you knocked it out of the park. You even survived LeCarner's notorious essays. And I'll tell you, I have it on good authority that when it comes to late work or not doing your reading, Dr. LeCarner is just as terrifying over Zoom. You also adapted to a very stressful and unconventional college admissions season. Canceled tests, shifting deadlines, no college visits or college tours, and yet you emerged having gotten into as great a range and selectivity of colleges all over the country and even overseas as any of PRA's previous classes. Not bad, 2021. I saw a CNN headline last month that caught my attention. It was for an article all about the toll that COVID-19 has taken on students and how it would define them. And it was called the COVID generation. I want to tell you here and now, I think that's BS. You guys will define what you do in the world, what you're remembered for, and COVID will just be a single blip upon that journey. In fact, I have no doubt that if anything, it will make you stronger, more mature adults. Those of you who paid attention in your US history classes will have learned about a generation of young Americans that lived through both the Great Depression and World War II. And do we call that generation the saddest generation? No, we call them the greatest generation for how they persevered and came out the other side, how they strove to make their communities and country a better place to live in. I'm confident that we will see something similar with all of you. Already, it gives me hope that you've managed to adapt so quickly to such difficult circumstances at a time when you're just 16, 17, 18 years old. There's no doubt about it, parts of the last year really sucked. But you know what? I'd argue you're actually stronger for it. That it's given you lessons in perspective that most teenagers never get until they're much, much older. There's one such lesson in particular that really stood out to me when I was trying to think about what the heck I wanted to say in this speech. And it's not something perhaps grandly inspirational or overly optimistic or worthy of air horns and t-shirt cannons. But it is something that I think the interruptions of the last year have reminded us to do. Appreciate the little things. There are all sorts of routines that we took for granted, and which, even in your smiles today, I can see you appreciating more now. Whether it's having lunch with your friends at school, or having a grueling but fulfilling sports practice after a long day of stressful tests, or seeing your teachers and principals greet you first thing in the morning, or even gathering together for high school rituals, like the senior clap out or graduation. There's a pleasure in those tiny moments that I think we've all come to appreciate. And at home, quarantines and COVID isolation forced us to find new ways to find contentment or enjoy ourselves. I've heard some seniors tell me, for instance, that you've been playing board games with parents and grandparents, something you never really did before. You've taken up new hobbies, new instruments, grown closer to your beloved family pets. Some of you have continued to journal, something you hated to do when I required it in my class. I even had a student write to me that she was enjoying afternoon walks, and that she would think about what we read of the Transcendentalists, who, by the way, were all about slowing down and appreciating the little things, including nature. Some of you have been volunteering at hospitals and churches. Others have been taking care of and growing closer to your younger siblings. And many of you have taken jobs on top of a rigorous course load, either to help out family or to save for college. These things may seem small, but if you can learn to appreciate them and the tiny moments of joy that sometimes come with them, then you'll be happier for it, whatever life throws at you. A global pandemic, a world war, the singularity when androids take over the planet. It might seem ironic, but it's the small things that will get you through them. Most of you are going off to college in the fall, and you're naturally focused on these big, sweeping changes in your lives. But if you can learn to take a moment to step back once in a while and appreciate the tiny pleasures along the way, you'll be happier for it. So if you'll indulge me, I would like to share with you all a few of the little things, memories of this graduating class that have stuck with me over the last few years. Attending the PRA Coffee House, one of my all-time favorite school events. Seeing how Stuco transformed the high school library into a dim performance space complete with fairy lights and floor seating. Listening to these students read their poems, play instruments, tell jokes, and sing their hearts out, sometimes even to songs they wrote themselves. The thwack of tennis balls on a late summer evening. Staying 20 minutes after tennis practice is finished because the kids just have to play one more game of touch the fence. Speaking of coaching tennis, getting to see these annoying, awkward freshmen grow into mature young men and women, some taller than I am, and who play better too. Having a student come up to me last year, every single day without fail at the end of class to say, "Have a good day, Mr. Finkelstein." Seeing another student publish her very first poem, and in a prestigious literary journal, no less. Lining up at the windows of my English classroom to watch the first snowfall of the year, in September, and hearing how excited the kids are for winter and the ski season. Getting to introduce you guys to my lovable cats, Iris and Flynn, when we had to switch to remote learning last March. And in turn, getting to meet your adorable fur babies over Zoom as well. Running into seniors every dang time I go shopping at King Soopers, or Mod Pizza, or pretty much anywhere within a 15-mile radius of PRA, but seeing how excited you are to say hi. Being taught pop culture by the kids in class, such as, what is a TikTok? What does on fleek mean? Is it something I eat? Or what makes one a visco girl? All important questions for navigating our brave new world. And on my end, getting to educate the youth. Things like, what is a vinyl record? Who are those funny-looking dudes, Simon and Garfunkel, on your wall? Answers, by the way, high-fidelity sound, far superior to MP3s. And two chaps with good melodic advice, such as, slow down, you move too fast, you gotta make the morning last. Then there were the riots that ensued in the hallway every year when someone found the golden pickaxe that Mr. D hid during Minor Cup. I've got a confession to make, kids. It's rigged. No, it's not. Or is it? At the end of Minor Cup last month, returning to my classroom to find messages written all over my whiteboard from this year's seniors. Fink, we miss you! And much more. It made my day, I'll tell you that. Seeing how creative you all were in getting around PRA's short-lived backpack ban. Yeah, remember that? Golf bags, trash bags, even overstuffed fanny packs. Some of you had hoodies tied into makeshift knapsacks. It's not a backpack, I guess. The originality was impressive. Wandering the empty halls of PRA after hours, seeing for the first time the incredible artistic talent of many of you seniors through your digital art and photography hanging on the walls. Or another time, seeing it in Miss Goldman's virtual gallery. Some of your work is truly breathtaking, and I'd encourage you parents and other relatives to take a look if you haven't already. Speaking of talent, I remembered getting to meet some of you as freshmen at the high school musical 4 years ago, being blown away by your roles in Once on This Island, not to mention the awesome homemade props and costumes. Boys, or should I say young men, I appreciated the commitment many of you made to your pandemic beards. And I also appreciated how nice you were to me with my scraggly Raskolnikov attempt at growing one last spring. Never again. On this very field, getting to watch the girls' soccer team beat Vail Mountain and make it to the semifinals in the playoffs. Seeing the cheer team win state and then go on to nationals. Just this month, all the decorated cars in PRA colors in our student parking lot over there, as we sent the girls' volleyball team off to state. We've got some capable senior athletes here, that's for sure. Then there was the tasting of your homemade dulce de leche, empanadas, rice pudding, gazpacho, and other delicacies, albeit with some questionable mystery dishes mixed in, at our international festival a couple years ago. Watching some of you step up big during minor mania over the years, sometimes adopting 2, 3, even 4 littles when we had high school absences, and putting in the effort to make sure that the elementary kids had a fun introduction to high school, even if you weren't thrilled with them using you as their personal jungle gym.